Welcome to the 2024 Dallas Herring Lecture. My name is AJ Jager. I am the Executive Director of the Belk Center for Community College Leadership and Research and the W. Dallas Herring Professor of Community College Education in the College of Education at NC State. During this annual lecture, we gather community college leaders from across the country as well as our state to consider historical foundations, current opportunities and challenges, and our future direction, with the ultimate goal, of course, of creating a brighter future for our students and our communities. Every year, we zoom in on the most urgent and important topics facing our community colleges and then envision a path forward. This year's event is particularly special as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Dallas Herring Lecture. We have tackled many issues over the course of the past decade: transfer, economic mobility, teaching and learning, workforce development. We've also grown in the number of attendees and in how we create a call to action and deliver on that call to action. It's been an incredible journey, and while much has changed, we at the Belk Center have stayed close to our vision of delivering research that community college leaders use and professional development that community colleges need to improve the lives for their students. In the last 10 years, we've had the opportunity to learn from some dynamic and courageous leaders. The collective accomplishments of our lecturers are many. We have a Presidential Medal of Freedom, the first Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence, a Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award winner, White House Champions of Change, as well as an appointment to the National Council for the Humanities, just to name a few of their accolades. Their expertise, their service, their vision for community colleges have left an incredible mark on us all. And it's quite special to have some of them with us today. So I'm going to take a moment to recognize them. As I call the names of those in the audience, please stand if you are able. And audience, please hold your applause until I have named the last lecturer. For those in attendance, Dr. Ken Ender, Professor of Practice and President Emeritus of Harper College. Josh Weiner, Executive Director of the College Excellence Program from the Aspen Institute. Dr. Karen Stout, President and CEO of Achieving the Dream. Dr. Pam Ettinger, President Bunker Hill Community College. Gregory Hale, Senior Fellow in ATD and Senior Fellow for the Harvard Kennedy School, as well as Felicia Williams, Dr. Williams, President of Prince George's Community College. It's a privilege to have you all with us today. Can we give them a round of applause? It's also a privilege to welcome our many attendees joining us virtually from locations across the country, from Hawaii to Maine, 36 states, as well as across the ocean to England and Germany, making that total over 1,500 strong. Finally, I'd like to extend a special welcome to the North Carolina community colleges that are hosting watch parties today. 20 colleges are gathering together to share this experience. We are grateful that we have all 58 community colleges represented. And we also want to acknowledge the 14 community college presidents from Western North Carolina whose tremendous leadership has been evident as they've helped their campuses and their communities through the devastating effects of Hurricane Helene. Those chairs in the front row are for those 14 presidents, You will see a QR code. If you feel so obliged, stop on your way out and support those colleges through their individual recovery efforts. As we look to the future together, we know that having diverse perspectives and exchanging ideas is a key to problem solving, which is why we convene leaders at these events and why they're so important. Our responsibility is not only to work toward the future, but also to acknowledge our past and those who came before us. To that end, NC State is a land-grant institution for the people of North Carolina and respectfully acknowledges that the lands within and surrounding present-day Raleigh were made up of traditional homelands and gathering places of many indigenous peoples, including 8 federally and state-recognized tribes: the Coharie, the Eastern Band of Cherokee, the Halawa-Saponi, the Lumbee, the Meherrin, the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation, and the Lumbee. We respect the sovereignty of these tribes and indigenous individuals residing in North Carolina and beyond, and we honor all indigenous peoples who have been and continue to be an integral part of our university's legacy and cultural history. In looking at the past, we also acknowledge the transformative legacy of Dallas Herring, whose story is marked by both triumphs and flaws. And like all of us, he has some blind spots. For Herring, that looked like holding troubling views about segregation earlier in his career, as he let the discourse of the day shape the views rather than the voices of the people he served. So while we cannot gloss over Herring's flaws and acknowledge and recognize our own flaws, we celebrate his willingness to learn from his mistakes, to lead with astonishing acuity, perseverance, and courage. The vision guiding his work was big, yet simple, an open door to meaningful educational opportunities for all North Carolinians. It started as he shaped his career in the 6th grade. He had the foresight to see how his hometown of Rose Hill, North Carolina, might transform if he simply put in the hands of his neighbors books in the most accessible way possible at the grocery store. That vision continued for 25 years as he served on the State Board of Education and advocated for opportunities for everyday people. And that vision shines brightly in the words he penned to North Carolina's Governor Luther Hodges when he wrote, "I'm convinced that North Carolina's future depends in large measure upon the kind of educational opportunities we afford our children today." That may seem obvious to those of us in the room who believe and say the words economic mobility and workforce development, common phrases for us, but for Herring, who wrote that nearly 70 years ago, was prophetic and also a bit controversial. The children of North Carolina that he spoke about weren't merely from the upper class or urban areas. The children he spoke about included every resident from every corner of our state. He recognized with remarkable clarity that what so few in his day understood, expanding educational access and improving pathways for all North Carolinians would result in a stronger workforce, a stronger community, and a stronger economy. In 1979, more than 2 decades after he wrote Governor Hodges, he continued to push for an educational system that would provide opportunity for all North Carolinians. He went on to say, "We cannot afford to make any other decision, for to do less than this is to choose ignorance and poverty over understanding and wealth." However, wealth wasn't ultimately what Herring was after. His aim had always been about flourishing of all people. He didn't see residents as cogs in machines, but as human beings with dreams and futures. Herring envisioned a system of higher education that allowed the state's residents to pursue their passions, utilize their strengths, and uplift their communities. In Earl, that would be a combination of you know what I mean, rural and urban alike. He envisioned diversified programs, robust career development, and a system that remained responsive to the end of rewind. If only there weren't 1,500 people watching online. So he envisioned diversified programs, robust career development, and a system that remained responsive to the ever-changing needs of communities. As we all know, remaining responsive to these needs in a rapidly changing world is anything but simple. Developing what Herring called a practical and quickly responsive curriculum and making it accessible to all requires time, resources, agility, and courage. However, the goal is in with reach, so long as we commit ourselves to the work together. In Herring's remarks, he said, "We have the manpower to do it already, but we need most of all is the determination to do it. Our determination for this work must follow Herring's own philosophy." And I'm sure many of you in the room know that phrase. May I hear it? We must take people where they are and carry them as far as they can go. We strive for robust education opportunities, knowing it's the key to developing our economies, alleviating poverty, and strengthening our communities. And along the way, we recognize the remarkable humanity of every learner. These are people with families, people with immense barriers, but endless possibility, people with fears and hopes, people with great potential we want to cultivate. Herring said it best, education of the masses of humanity, not only as economic beings, but especially as human beings, have the potential and achievement possibility for peace and prosperity. Together, we have the opportunity to carry Dallas Herring's legacy forward. Let's carry it far into the future, deep into our institutions, and wide across the state and nation. Let's open the doors for students in our neighborhoods and our classrooms and for their parents, and for the multitude of individuals who we'll never meet personally, but whose dreams will change the world. This, Herring said, will be our great reward. By thinking and planning and working together, we have opened new doors of opportunity to the tens of thousands of people in North Carolina, people who do not know us personally and never will, and who seem hardly aware that the doors were not always there, wide opening and beckoning them to greater achievement, to higher thoughts, and to nobler deeds. With this quote from Herring, I can't help but think of someone who spent over a decade opening careers and opportunities to many in North Carolina, who happens to be seated in our front row, Dr. Randy Woodson. Now that our chancellor has announced his retirement, is it okay if I call you Randy? I have come to know Randy as a colleague and a strong advocate and ally of the work we do and the colleges we proudly serve. Randy has served as chancellor of NC State University since 2010, and throughout his time here, he has been a tremendous advocate of North Carolina community colleges, transfer, and the Belk Center. In the last decade of the Dallas Herring Lecture, Randy has attended nearly every lecture and brought his presence as well as his participation, his enthusiastic support for our team, our work, our partners, and the mission before us, advancing community college student success. Randy understands the tremendous value of the community college education across our state and who holds NC State's legacy of a land-grant mission near and dear. Whenever I reach out to Randy and ask for his assistance, he always responds and always agrees, right? Did I get that right? Just for the record, he said always. Whether it was speaking in my class or agreeing to serve as the co-chair of the Presidential Workforce on Transfer, he has been an early supporter of the Belk Center and have played an incredible role in developing and expanding programs here at NC State. But suffice it to say, he is a strong believer in community college education in the Belk Center. Randy, we will be saving a seat for you at the annual Dallas Herring Lecture next year and every year thereafter. You won't find a crowd more committed to the future of all North Carolinians than right here, so we look forward to you returning. Please welcome Dr. Randy Woodson.
Oh, thank you. I'm retiring. Can I call you AJ? Thank you, Dr. Jaeger, and thank you all for being here today. This is a phenomenal program and such a great tribute to Dallas Herring's legacy. And it is the 10th anniversary, and it's a wonderful thing to celebrate. As AJ mentioned, I've had the opportunity to attend many of these events, and I've always found it and the lecturers meaningful in so many ways that inspire me to continue our work at NC State. You know, the Dallas Herring Lecture is a terrific opportunity to address the most pressing educational issues across the community college landscape across this great country of ours, to supporting students and supporting their success. You know, we're incredibly proud at NC State of the work of the Belk Center and the work the Belk Center is doing to support community college leaders all across North Carolina and across the country. Community colleges equip students with the credentials that they need for the workforce, the credentials they need to transfer to a university like NC State, and the credentials and the experience they need to lead in their communities. And we're so proud of all the work that the Belk Center has accomplished in its 5 years of working here with us at NC State. And I'm eager to see what the future holds for our community colleges all across North Carolina, and for the great Belk Center that supports our work. And so I know, MC, I hope you're watching. I know you couldn't be with us today, but we are so grateful for your support, the support of the John M. Belk Endowment, and for the generosity and the partnership. And it is truly a partnership, and the shared vision to strengthen community colleges and our communities all across North Carolina. So, MC, your commitment to the Belk Center and community colleges is remarkable and something that we celebrate every day at NC State. So please join me in thanking the Belk Center. Another way that our university aims to strengthen community college education is through our College of Education's Community College Leadership Program, the doctoral program. Something that gives me great pride is to say with great passion that so many of the community college leaders across our great state came through our program at NC State, and that's because of AJ and her colleagues. This program is unique in that it's one of the oldest community college leadership programs in the country, and is also the only one supported by an entity like the Belk Center. It's a privilege to offer this unique educational opportunity to current and aspiring community college leaders. And we're grateful for the impact our alumni are making every day across this great state. on student success and in their communities in North Carolina and well beyond. In fact, I'd like to take just a moment to recognize our doctoral alumni and our current students who hope and dream to be alumni soon. And so if you're able, would you please stand and let us acknowledge all of the alumni from this doctoral program and the current students. I wish all of our viewers online could see the number of people standing and the pride this chancellor has in your success. And finally, I want to acknowledge that serving communities across North Carolina not only involves supporting our community colleges, but supporting our transfer students. It's something that we take very seriously at NC State. We want to ensure a smooth transition from the great community college system in our state to universities like NC State, and yes, there are other universities in the state, and we acknowledge that. But it's for this reason that we've created at NC State the C3 program in partnership with many community colleges across the state. We really want that our students at NC State and the students in your community colleges to find a home. And we aim for this program to increase enrollment in the bachelor's degree completion program among low to moderate income, rural, under-resourced, military-affiliated, and first-generation transfer students, while partnering with community colleges to champion student success. I'm proud, we recently in the UNC system reviewed all the transfer students into our university, and I'm proud that NC State transferred 1,700 students to our campus this year, almost 1,000 of which came from our community colleges. And that's a great source of pride for us. And I think you all know we could fill this university with freshmen. In fact, I just reviewed the applications this morning. We've already had almost 40,000 applications for our freshman class, but we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we afford opportunities for people across our great state to fulfill our land-grant mission and make sure that everyone sees a pathway to a college like NC State, or maybe another one, maybe. But thanks to the generosity of Jim and Ann Goodnight, who have endowed the Goodnight Scholars Program at NC State, which is included in the pipeline for students, transfer students to NC State in STEM and STEM-related fields. In fact, with the expansion of this program this year, we'll be bringing 60 new transfer students to NC State with a full-ride scholarship for 3 years. And that's the tribute to the Goodnight's philanthropy and to their commitment to our students across all of North Carolina. And so we're grateful for all of these opportunities, so grateful for our partnerships with the leadership of the community college system, and we pledge to you we'll continue to work hard to make sure that it's a seamless pipeline. And now, it's my distinct honor and privilege to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Russell Lowry Hart. And we got to meet behind the stage in the green room, very fancy. And Dr. Lowry Hart is the 9th chancellor of the Austin Community College District. And prior to joining the Austin Community College District as chancellor, he served as president of the Amarillo College for nearly a decade. Under his leadership, the district has been awarded the Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence in 2023. He has also earned a number of other accolades. I could go on, but then he wouldn't have time for the lecture. But he's including the Leah Meyer Austin Award for Achieving the Dream and membership in the inaugural class of the Aspen Institute Presidential Fellowship, a high honor indeed. And speaking from his own experience, Dr. Lowry Hunt has an important message for all of us to hear. And it's a message about leadership, and not the typical message about leadership, but one that inspires us through the love and the care that we provide with the students that are under our charge. So it's his belief that effective leadership is rooted not ultimately in power, that's disappointing, or influence, or even charisma, which is equally disappointing. But in something really much deeper, and that is love and affection that each of us have to have for the people that we work with every day and the people that we're charged with educating and transforming their lives. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Lowry Hunt.
Much for that introduction. I've become known as the love guy, the love president. And I've been moved by the number of colleges and universities that have embraced the concept of love and building cultures of caring and infusing poverty-informed practices into their work. But boy, Heidi, in the world that we now live in, where we're recovering from hurricanes, where we're questioning our neighbors' post-election results, where we are a country that is experiencing racial and social and economic divides that push us apart rather than bring us together. The need for us to lead with love is more profound today than it has ever been. But because of those realities, leading with love is harder than it's ever been. What I have been concerned by is that people have misunderstood what it means to lead with love. That leading with love is feeling-based, and I'm here to challenge you to have a deeper understanding of what leading with love means. That leading with love isn't just about the warm fuzzies, although they can be fun and important. That it is about building love through structures, data, accountability, budgets, and plans to activate love, not just talk about it. So for this lecture, I would like to explain what love means to me as a leader and what I hope it can mean for us as higher education leaders ourselves. I am deeply honored by this moment in my life. I'm so grateful for the predecessors who are what I call Mount Rushmore leaders for community colleges, and to be included with you in this group is an honor that I never expected and one that I will always cherish. Chancellor Whitson, thank you for the kind introduction and congratulations on your incredible tenure. Enjoy Italy. I see so many of my colleagues and friends in the room that have inspired me, that have challenged me, that push me, that question me in all the ways that love exudes itself. I'm grateful for your partnership and your friendship. And online, in a couple of watch parties in Austin, I have colleagues whom I have in a year and a couple of months grown to love fully and deeply. I'm so grateful for your dedication to our students, our college, and our community, and I hope I do you proud this afternoon. Today is my middle son's birthday, so happy birthday, Campbell. I have one of my closest friends who is facing one of life's biggest challenges, and he's doing it with courage. I love you, Clay. And finally, none of us in leadership roles would be in these moments if we weren't surrounded by friends and family that love us to these experiences. For me, that is a profound, selfless love that I found with my partner and wife, Tara. Thank you for loving me to here. Our journey to transformation really starts with understanding Maria. And many of you have heard me talk about Maria with a deep passion. Maria is the typical community college student. I think she looks like the demographics that most of our communities represent. She is a woman of color, 26 years old, raising 1.2 kids, working 2 part-time jobs. She's a first-generation college student that's going to school part-time because she's got a life, and she is the hope of our community, the hope of our country. Yet we are not designed for her. Instead, we ask her to shift her entire understanding of the world to align to us. We need to fall in love with Maria. We need to see her, understand her, champion her, and dedicate ourselves to her. She is remarkable, she's smart, she's ambitious, and she can get it done as long as we can get out of her way. What I also worry about when you look at Maria is who's missing from our typical students. And I've spent 2 days having a robust conversation about that missing person. Maria is the typical student. She's who has arrived. She had the courage to get out of her car and embrace the bureaucracy that often tells her she doesn't belong. What I worry about is that student, that face that doesn't have a name, that is missing, that is drowning in isolation and uncertainty and anger, and needs us in a profound way, in the same way that Maria needs us. But he's not here. And we demonize the one that is here. Imagine what the world could look like if we saw our students, both those that are in our presence and those that should be, for the humans they are, and built systems and bureaucracies for who they need us to be, rather than demand they shift to who we wish we were. Gregory Hale this morning, in a conversation about Maria, really moved me, because I think he captured something that I want to inflict on you all. Imagine if you had a family member that you loved deeply and they were in trouble and they called you. What would you do when you got that phone call? You know what you would do. Maria is calling you, and our bureaucracies aren't picking up the phone. If we can see our students with the same urgency and love that we see our family and friends, we can change the divides that we have spent in the last 2 weeks gnashing our teeth over. We can love our communities back to success if we can see and honor the humanity that exists in all of us. And I will say one final thing about Maria. In the divides that we are now trying to make sense of, in a country that feels different today than it felt a month ago, although it's not, in a world that is causing us to question the sincerity of our neighbors and our colleagues, this is a world that we can no longer ask our Marias, our women of color, to step in with the courage that white men and white women of color have surely been missing. We have to step in with courage and protect our colleagues that we have hidden behind, and the world that we're moving into requires the kind of courage that we, with privilege, have avoided showing. As Dallas Herring challenged us over 50 years ago, we must take the people where they are and carry them as far as they can go within the assigned functions of the system. I contend that we must go even further and reconsider the assigned functions of the system in service to Maria. Our communities and our communities' colleges' future rest on Maria's success. She needs us to love her to success, and don't kid yourself, we need her to be successful for our community's survival. So today we celebrate the 10 years of the Dallas Herring Lecture that has uniquely challenged the functions of the system, as we appreciate the impact of the Belk Center over the last 5 years to root us in the transformation that we're called to. We need these lectures, and we need the Belk Center to guide us, to ponder who we are and who we could be. In his book, Out of the Crisis, Walter Deming observed that every system is perfectly designed to get the results it does. Go home and look at the results that you are perfectly designed to produce and tell me you're okay with those. Maria needs us, but most often we find ourselves failing her. She is not failing us. We have got to reimagine ourselves as institutions, as leaders, as colleagues, as employees, as a sector of education in order to serve Maria and meet the growing challenges facing higher education. Because we're misaligned with Maria, the fundamentals of higher education are broken. This is a point that Felicia Williams drove home in her 2023 lecture. She reminds us that we are on the threshold of really remarkable change, but it's going to require an urgency and an audacity and a grace. And you see that urgency and audacity in the 10 community colleges in North Carolina that find themselves on the Aspen 150. This is a state that's dedicated to looking courageously at the changes that is thrust upon us. North Carolina colleges are serious about reimagination, and if you talk to their presidents and you talk to leaders around the country, they'll tell you that the moment that we're in requires courageous leadership that will not be easy. It will not be easy. Yet it's a transformation whose necessity is reaching a tipping point. In Gregory Hale's 2021 lecture, he called out this tipping point, and he laid its burden at the feet of every higher education leader. He said the necessity for transformation can be uncomfortable, but our jobs are not to keep the trains on the track. Our jobs are not to keep the trains on the track. Imagine how many meetings that you are sitting in as a leader and employee whose sole purpose is to keep the trains on the track. Our jobs are not to keep the trains on the track. Our jobs include making sure that everyone is on the train. Often the train schedule and even the train routes do not work for Maria. They work for us, though, and we seem to be satisfied with that. My leadership philosophy centered on love was greatly informed by the renowned scholar and philosopher Bell Hooks. Her writings, particular her book All About Love, profoundly shaped who I am as a person, a parent, a husband, a colleague, a citizen, and a leader. Her definition of love is the foundation on which I offer an ethic of love for you as educators. It truly is all about love. I know many of you have met President Austin before with me. The power of his example is that he's exposing what I think we have failed in higher education. We talk it, President Austin did it. We have got to transition from convenings that talk about transformation and double down on doing it. Imagine if President Austin sat at home with his cape and just talked about how much he wanted to feed the homeless versus what we just saw where he actually did it. The doing is love. The talking about it is just rhetoric. Bell Hooks defines love as actions that openly and honestly expresses care, affection, responsibility, respect, commitment, and trust. So with that guiding definition, Bell Hook calls all of us to be greater and higher leaders with a purpose and execution of leadership. The ethic of love should be seen in all aspects of our lives, not just familial, not just romantic, and not just spiritual corners of it. Bell Hooks suggests that our culture can only be a place for everyone when it allows the ethic of love to be experienced everywhere, even in our classrooms and our colleges. For me, love and leadership are synonymous with each other. Now, they may have nuanced differences, but one cannot be separate of the other. When they are separate, leadership becomes about power, and it becomes about infliction and hierarchies, and we deserve better than that kind of leadership. Instead, leadership should be about service and partnership and relationship. I'm not interested in power. I'm more intrigued by, and I think we're all better for, collaboration and community that leads us to improve systems and outcomes. So I want to talk about transformational leadership. That transformational leadership has got to be rooted in culture building rather than just a list of initiatives that are operational centric. In the inaugural Dallas Herring lecture, Ken Ender prepared us for this exact moment. He reflected that our institutions of today are not sufficient for the challenges of tomorrow, and that we must do more to reimagine our systems. The tomorrow that Ken referenced 10 years ago is today. It is here. It has arrived. Which requires a new framework for leadership. And that's the framework that I want to spend the remaining time together dissecting. And there are three parts to that framework: culture, impact, and communication. For our student success metrics to soar and student employability to create family-sustaining wages, the community college must first rethink and rebuild its culture. What I know and what I've heard about the story that we created in Amarillo and the one that I'm trying to craft in Austin is that we often want to look for institutions to inspire us. And then when they do, we want to look under the hood and tell us why it won't apply to our institution. Amarillo, an isolated rural community, a town of 200,000 that services an area that's as big as the state of Connecticut, less than 10,000 students a year, in a really challenged economic reality that needs its community college to reimagine what the future could look like. I'm in Austin with 80,000 students annually, with one of the world's fastest growing, booming economies that doesn't need the community college to lead and reimagine. It just needs the community college to keep up and support. Very different communities politically, different communities with political and financial realities. But what I've learned from both Amarillo and Austin is that people are people. Rural and urban, those students still need the same advocacy that you offer in your institutions. Both institutions, even in their different contexts, have similar ethos, a deep commitment to students and their success. After a decade in Amarillo, living and building that philosophy of leadership, Amarillo College tripled its graduation rates, dramatically increased its completion rates, and won the Aspen Prize. Austin is in its version of rewriting its future, and my colleagues that are watching back home give me hope that our story is going to be even more profound in its impact. What both institutions share is a courage to admit when something is not working and seek a new model of execution. Both institutions serve as an exciting example of how to love students to success. The 58 North Carolina colleges each echo a divergent and diverse higher education system. You can find Amarillo's and Austin's in every part of this great state. And Bell Hooks offers a clear challenge that all community colleges and universities should accept. She says all spheres of American life, politics, religion, the workplace, household relations, should and could have as their foundation a love ethic. And I know it's difficult to lead with love when budgets are being challenged, when politicians are demonizing, when families in your communities are questioning the very value of what we do every day. But transformation, my friends, is being forced upon us. In Austin, the lack of resources didn't drive our innovation like it did in Amarillo. It was the political imperative for equity and social and economic mobility. In 2022, Mike Flores offered a hopeful example of how to close equity gaps through community collaboratives focused on economic alignments as a way to navigate the politicization of equity. When students were flailing and failing, the political scenario demanded a new kind of leadership that Mike offered his community that we can learn from. In that framework, my friends, leading transformation is scary, it's painful, it's ugly, and it's necessary. We don't readily or easily talk about the crushing stories of pain, of uncertainty, or fear when leading transformation. We don't like to acknowledge the ugly anonymous letters that leaders get that challenge our humanity, that force us to want to respond in kind. But leading with love requires a different ethic and a different location and a different challenge. But make no mistake, leading transformation is hard. And that fear that we all have's got to give way to courage. And I would contend that the entrenched higher education bureaucracy must give way to the data and the student voice. People are often inspired by the Amarillo transformation, and I think people hope that I can just tell them if you say the words love and you put it on a billboard or on a pin or in your vision statement, that love will simplify the hard choices in front of you. But it ain't easy, folks. Leading with love takes more courage and deeper commitments to students and to faculty and staff colleagues. Leading with love will only expose the deeper fissures that exist within our institutions, rather than be the salve that hides it. In 2020, during the pandemic, Pam Edinger clarified this point. She directed us to move our gaze from student deficits to student readiness. She confronted our lack of courage in the moments that we needed it the most. Leading with love demands courage, transparency, a really thick skin, maybe some bourbon, and tough dedication. But leading with love will be the thing that does heal. It will create functional relationships, and it will create an environment where students and colleagues and faculty and leaders can thrive. So, instead of complaining, instead of hoping for a political funding fix, we've got to control our own destinies. And that starts with changing our culture. Leading transformation in Amarillo and now Austin means rebuilding institutions in three interwoven parts: culture, impact, and communication. The culture work's got to start with a clear commitment to loving students to success, and most colleges will claim it without truly understanding it. Loving students to success means really, really listening to them. And to be clear, rebuilding an entire college on the foundation of love isn't easy in a sector whose systems are often devoid of it. I root the beginning of my leadership in Amarillo and now Austin by engaging secret shopper students, and I asked them one question: tell me what the perfect college looks and feels like for you. And through a course of multiple conversations, what they describe as the perfect college doesn't reference equipment, although that's important. It doesn't reference the nice, shiny building, although our students deserve it. It references two things that don't cost us anything. The perfect college for our students are defined by care and help. Our students just wanted a college full of people that cared about them and would be willing to help them. And you would think in higher education that building care and help into a system wouldn't be that difficult. And yet, it is. Leading employees to know and understand the students we have rather than the students we used to have, or the students that we wished we had, or the students that we thought we had, or what I think might be an epidemic, that we've designed ourselves for the students that we were, rather than loving the students that we have, requires a different understanding and location of what our responsibilities are. And I think, like higher education, like most of society, we drown in the good old days tropes, right? And in higher education, it looks like this. If students were just better prepared, if they were just more dedicated, if they just knew what they wanted to accomplish, if they could just focus on school and not work so much, those tropes don't reflect the profound courage that your students have to walk on your campuses, and don't reflect the skills that you haven't tapped into. This isn't your students' problem, it's yours. Listen and know your students.
I'm originally from Venezuela. I moved here because I wanted to keep studying, and ACC was the opportunity that gave me a platform to start here and build my career.
I was a freshly divorced single mom of two, a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I had accepted an entry-level position at a dental office, and that chapter was really rough. I remember passing a billboard on Ben White, and I remember seeing ACC is for everyone. And I thought to myself, like, well, this dental gig isn't working out the way that I had hoped. It wasn't gonna provide the kind of life that I wanted for myself and my children. So I scheduled my TSI and just went with it, and here I am.
I had initially attempted university first out of high school over in Colorado at UCCS, and later at CU Denver. And during that time period, this was 2020, 2021, COVID hit, kind of made a bit of a mess of a lot of different situations. And so then I decided to move close enough to be able to visit family, but still have a little bit of breathing room, and found myself here in Austin, and wanted to get right back on track in school. And so ACC seemed to be the perfect fit for me.
My older brother, he actually went to ACC too. And it also inspired me because he went to ACC and then he also transferred to UT Austin. So I always wanted to do the same thing, especially because ACC is a lot cheaper and is a great alternative to just going straight into a 4-year university, so that you know exactly what you want, and also you can prepare yourself before you take that big step.
Childcare has been a huge struggle for me. And then time. That's a finite resource that I struggle with daily, trying to figure out the balance between kids and school and life, and trying to maintain some semblance of my sanity.
I know I'm supported. I know like there is a lot of people here to like guide me. It was more of like how hard maybe it can be to find that support. As a non-traditional, this is the perfect department that's going to help me through my journey.
I feel like there's so much opportunities, but because there's so much, it's so hard to like pinpoint the exact one that you're looking for. And like just looking where to even start can be quite challenging.
I was planning my spring semester, and I was looking to take a Calculus 1 course, and there were 19 available. 12 of those 19 were available after 3 o'clock. So those were out for me. Of the remaining 7, I think 4 of them were distance learning, and 2 of them were super north, and 2 of them were south and fit within my schedule. I ended up speaking to the board of directors at that point and talking about scheduling, but also childcare. And that's when I was approached and asked, like, hey, have you heard about the child care scholarship? And I was like, no, I haven't. If I had, I wouldn't be here speaking in front of the board. I feel like there's things that ACC does really well, but they can be hidden and they're not as advertised.
I remember I just got this email and I was like, hey, do you want to be in this focus group with the chancellor? And I was like, wow, sure, yeah, this is a great opportunity.
Everyone that was there are either students or student employees or a single mom or like non-traditional students, so everyone had a different perspective. I think I've never been in an environment where you discuss the core values of something, right? Something as important of like what's the future of ACC, of the people that are here.
Being able to hear everyone's perspective on things was just an eye-opener.
The chancellor kind of set up a discussion where he had these giant Post-it notes and hung them up all around the walls of the room that we were in. And each of them had core values of different companies and other universities or other community colleges that were extremely successful. We were given these stickers that we were able to place on which list of values really called to us.
For example, I was surprised by the core values of Starbucks. Like, I was like, well, those are really good values, but at the same time, I don't think they actually practice it.
And then we narrowed these down to the ones which were most popular or most favorited by everybody involved, at which point we all got back together and discussed and began combining these values into what we would love for ACC to hold as their own values. And
I think the chancellor managed to make it like a very welcoming space. So it was really a rich discussion. For example, we started the conversation by asking ourselves, what is your perfect college? What is your perfect employee, right? And from that idealized concept, we bring it back to the good and the bad of ACC.
I think the perfect college is one who helps link people to their goals, people making their dreams come true. That makes a great college. A perfect college helps cultivate a community and friendships and connections which these people will carry throughout their journey from where they are to where they want to be.
Sandy Shugart, in his 2019 lecture, with his deep North Carolinian roots, inspired us to embrace this in-design approach with students at the center. He reflected that our students need us to do more than just tinker with our systems. We've got to completely redesign them. And when you can redesign your systems with a student voice, and now my not-so-secret shoppers at the center, we can become the college of care and help that they're yearning for us to be. Love is a performance of will. It's a verb. It's an intentional action. And loving students to success starts by listening to them. Once you listen to them and you evaluate the data that explains their experiences with you, you've got to build a really clear theory of change. In Austin, our theory of change is this: if a student can have a strong start in systems that help them enroll full-time while we're meeting their basic needs in a culture of belonging and purpose, then she will complete. For a theory of change to create transformation, it's got to be built into your budgets, your structures, your org charts, and your job descriptions. When the theory of change becomes real instead of a marketing strategy, the warm fuzzies of love disappear real quick. When colleges understand that the theory of change is actionable, that it's based on predictive analytics and the student voice, the culture will start to shift in really powerful ways. One of the things that our students just referenced were the institutional values. And the president of Southern New Hampshire wrote a book called Broken, worthy of a read. In that book, he said, when systems fail the people they're meant to serve, it's almost always a failure of human values. So I want to show you that the values of our Austin Community College students wrote. That the perfect college for them was full of people that had the courage to admit when something wasn't working, had the compassion to see our students for who they were and the challenges they brought with them, found it joyful to serve our students rather than a burden or an inconvenience, and would find a way to get to a yes rather than simply accept the answer is a bureaucratic no. Those values root your college and each other. They become the expectations that you hold yourselves accountable to and are the foundation of reimagining your culture. Once you have your values, you've got to have a unifying shared vision that will empower people to act. Austin's vision is loving students to success with a goal of 70% completion by 2030, with students matriculating into a family-sustaining wage. It's provided powerful clarity. It will challenge us to identify the structures, and a bureaucratic world needs the clarity and the structures. But I have experienced, even in my own college, leaders and colleagues that have expressed concerns about a stretch goal of a 70% completion, and I get it. But simply calling our colleagues to improve completion by 5% doesn't call us out of our bureaucratic and our siloed worlds. We need big, bold structural changes that a 5% goal will never call us to. Build the culture, then you've got to build for impact. Rooted in a theory of change and values that matter, you've got to ensure that your data is actually reaching that goal. For me, that starts with data summits. Data democratization, where every employee has access to data and understands how to use it to improve their work, is critical. Yet in higher education, I think we often use our data for harm or for power plays or a political tool. We've got to create environments where data creates curiosity and a collective problem solving. Data summits are a way to do that. And even when you look in the North Carolina world, I see emerging leaders changing student outcomes. Stanley Community College saw incredibly dramatic graduation rate increases in 2022 during COVID. Find out what your North Star is, build your data conversations around it, and data summits are a great tool. Then you've got to build an innovation muscle. And we don't like to think of innovation as something that we have to build to. We tend to think of it as an email that we send out telling people what the new thing is going to be. Transformation takes time and is difficult. But with each iteration of transformation, it gets easier and it gets faster. In Amarillo, it took us 2 years to integrate 8 weeks. It took us 18 months to scale tutoring with triggers in all the top 26 enrolled classes. It only took us 9 months to scale co-rec at 100%. Build your innovation muscle and empower your employees in the process. In Austin, we're using cross-collaboration design teams with a twist that my friends are laughing about back home. I am empowering our colleagues to reimagine what Austin Community College looks like. I asked for nominations from the college for employees who are known for problem solvers, and I got 900 nominations. We have over 200 colleagues that are in cross-collaboration design teams focusing on how we make the theory of change real and actionable. The controversy is, I said, you can't be a dean or higher and reimagine what this college looks like. We have cut out our faculty and staff who see students on the front lines. When we as leaders go to conferences and see award-winning presentations and come back and send emails or maybe even write a missive. Our colleagues know what works and what's not working. Our job as leaders is to reconfigure the power dynamic and go all in on our colleagues who can save us from ourselves. Not without controversy. I had one leader colleague that said, "Russell, you're taking my job away from me." And here's the reality. I'm not taking anyone's job away. I'm clarifying the power and importance of that job. Our jobs as leaders is not making decisions and managing people. That's a function. Our job is creating environments where we lead people to discovering the transformations that they hold and empowering them to walk them out. Build out your innovation muscle and empower your colleagues to do it for you. And then when you do it, you've got to scale it. If you don't scale it, don't do it. In Amarillo, if we couldn't serve 25% of students through an initiative, we killed the initiative. In Austin, we're determining what those thresholds are right now, but I already see real signs of progress in the way that we're serving our parenting students and our students overall. Scale is the difference between simply award-winning programs and life-changing institutions. But I think as leaders, we're much more comfortable submitting our interventions for recognition than we are doing the hard work that's required to reimagine our institutions. To do that reimagination, you've got to double down on professional development. You've got to create a culture of learning, teaching, and innovation. Learning and teaching has got to be at the center of your reformation, and the faculty have to be at the table, and they have to have access to the resources and the development to bring their full selves to the conversation. Karen Stout, in her 2018 address, reminded us that institutional reform is overdue and that teaching must be the foundation on which reformation is built, and implored us to support and reward effective teaching. In Amarillo, that development was aligned to the theory of change that ensured that every employee understood the values, how to access and use data, understood poverty, intentional biases or unintentional biases, and understood our students. Make sure you are investing in your employees, and that means that you're going to have to budget for that investment. Most of the time when we budget in higher education, we call it's the rollover. What did you get last year? Well, that's what you're going to get this year with a few maybe % difference above or below. In the world that we're living in, which theories of change that require immediacy, we have to budget for returns on our investment. Where, if we invested, could we get returns on student outcomes that would generate more resources? For Amarillo, that was tutoring, social services. They all had an ROI that allowed us to invest on what we would gain. That ROI investment is going to, I think, be the impetus that allows us to build out theory of changes instead of just talking about them. So culture, impact, and the final piece of the transformation is communication. We have a lot of challenges in front of us. Those challenges require a different approach. It requires strong, clear, frequent communication plans that have to address the obstacles within our colleges and our theories of change. One of the things that I've engaged in Austin is a version of what I did in Amarillo. Is every month I have town halls. I thought the college would get tired of them a year and a half in. They want more of them. Meeting with every single department to engage one-on-one, traveling the campuses, meeting people in their offices, learning who they are and what their hopes and dreams are the best way to unlock their ability to find the hopes and dreams of your students. The greatest lesson I've learned in being intentional that communication might be my #1 duty as a leader is that org charts are not communication plans. In the absence of information from the CEO, employees will fill in the gaps with rumors, conjecture, speculation, and fear. Emails are not communication strategies. Our colleagues and our students deserve direct communication from us. And this is the way I think to love your colleagues to success, is to listen to them. Because when you listen to them, they'll listen to you. And that requires radical transparency and radical simplicity. Our bureaucracies for our students and ourselves are wrapped up in a whole lot of uncertainty, unwritten rules, and histories that we no longer explain. Leadership has got to become about listening, engaging, empowering, and relating instead of just about decision making. And that means that you've got to have the same kind of intentionality with your trustees. The same process of culture, impact, and communication that you apply to your colleges, you've got to apply to the partnerships with your trustees. Which means that your leadership has to change. And I want to talk to you about how mine has. One of the most important decisions that I made when I became a first-time president with a board that wasn't too sure that this early 40-something that was unproven deserved the opportunity is that I hired a coach. I negotiated that into my initial contract. My coach was Don Cameron, who's the president emeritus at Guilford Tech, who for a decade became a part of the transformation of Amarillo College. He moved from a coach to a partner to a friend. In Austin, I have a different coach, Allison Cadillac, who already had established relationships and trust within the college, who has become the conduit for us to see and hear each other as a leadership team. CEO coaching should be normalized and it should be required. It is the greatest gift a CEO in a college could receive. When you get that kind of coaching, you can start changing higher education. What I worry the most about, though, in higher education is that we want to change by what I call checkbox leadership, where we go to a conference and we see a presentation and we're like, well, we do that, and we check the box. And we have lists of initiatives that we have checked the box on without asking ourselves the more important question of, are they working? Do they have the impact that our investment in them requires? Uncheck the box and start asking questions. Because in this new leadership, love and accountability are the same thing. I think you see that love and accountability at Wake Tech. When you walk in, you see a care center that was designed for students with the voice of employees. It's the first thing that students see. They've normalized care rather than made it something to be ashamed of. That is transparent, reflective, communicative leadership, because the leaders at that college talked about what was happening to their students and empowered their employees through a strategic planning process to respond, and they did. And it is incredible, and I hope you get to see it. The intentionality for culture, commitment to impact of our actions, and redefining communication will actually change outcomes for our students. And fundamentally, Josh talked about this in his 2016 lecture when he offered the College 3.0 roadmap for transformation. Moving from access and completion to labor market outcomes that build social and economic mobility has got to be the center of our reimagination. And we have to acknowledge that academic traditions have not created the necessary solutions for students, but love can. So make love a central part of your work. It won't be easy, but do it anyway. As Hooks noted, we are taught to believe that the mind, not the heart, is the seat of learning. Many of us believe that to speak of love with any emotional intensity means we will be perceived as weak or irrational. Leading with love seems to challenge the fundamental notions of academe, and I'm asking you to accept that challenge. In his 2017 remarks, Eduardo explained that our need for love and transformation is the call that we're needing to respond to. He said we need to recognize our duty as college educators to the country, to the people struggling to find their place in a changing world. We need to fulfill our obligations to work with a new generation of students. We need to embrace the understanding that talent is universal, but right now, opportunity is not. We need to change that equation. I'm here as your friend and colleague to call you to change that equation and to center love at the heart of it. And as you leave here and go back to your worlds, whatever they are, don't forget to show love. Thank you so much.
Whew, that's a tough talk to follow. Thank you so much, Dr. Laurie Hart, for sharing your powerful message, for inviting us to lead with love. And I have to say, I'm truly moved. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I know that your message of intentionally leading with love, developing culture, listening to our student is going to resonate with everybody in this room. And it's a big call to action and to love. I love this idea that love is a verb. So let's practice it. I'm Paola Stein. I'm Dean of the College of Education here at NC State. And it's my honor to be here today to share a few words and introduce our next speakers. State College of Education, our effort to improve has come from our strategic plan that's organized around 4 key areas: innovation, interdisciplinarity, inclusiveness, and impact. And I'm leaving today thinking, where is love? So I am going to relook at our strategic plan to think, how are we going to make love a central part of innovation, impact, inclusiveness, and interdisciplinarity? So thank you for that order. Our plan guides us as we live out our land-grant mission to lead the way in making a transformative impact across North Carolina and beyond, and working every day to ensure all learners have opportunities for access and have opportunities to succeed. That is our job. Our efforts include the important work of the Belk Center for Community College Leadership and Research and what they are doing to make sure we improve our partnership with community college and enhance our impact across North Carolina and beyond. So it is my honor to introduce the next 2 speakers who are going to react and share some of their thoughts about the lecture we just heard. Dr. Scott Rawls of Wake Technical Community College and Dr. Pamela Senegal of Piedmont Community College. So they will be sharing a few examples, and bear with me, I'll introduce both of them right now, and the introduction is long because they are amazing. So Dr. Scott Rawls is the 4th president of Wake Technical Community College, North Carolina's largest community college. Prior to this role, he served as president of Northern Virginia Community College, president of North Carolina Community College System, and president of Craven Community College. He's a passionate advocate of workforce development and student success, and was recently appointed by United States Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona as the higher education representative to the Telecommunications Workforce Working Group. He also serves at the national level as co-chair of the Community College Workforce Consortium and a member of the Task Force on Higher Education and Opportunity. Dr. Rawls has been recognized as a Power 100 business leader in the Washington, D.C. region and in North Carolina. He's also the recipient of the Distinguished Public Service Award from the North Carolina Chamber and the Order of the Longleaf Pine. This is North Carolina's highest civilian honor. Today he will share examples of practice to demonstrate the importance of reaffirming our commitment to those who are forgotten. Dr. Pamela Gibson Senegal served as president of Piedmont Community 2017. She is a 3-time NC State graduate, go Pack, and a lifelong educator with more than 25 years of combined experience in industry and education, bringing many valuable perspectives about economic mobility, community partnership, and global learning into everything she does. Her dedication to public service is seen in her work on various boards, including EdNC, UNC's Worldview Council of Advisors, NC Campus Engagement, Person Memorial Foundation, Piedmont Triad Regional Workforce Development, Roxborough Saving Banks, Person and Caswell Economic Development Board, and through her membership in Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc., and Boy Scout of America, and also her church. Dr. Senegal did the Ask President's Institute Fellowship Program in 2020-2021, and was recently announced as one of the 25 innovative leaders from across the country as a member of the second cohort of the Aspen President Fellowship. Today, she will also share examples of practice to demonstrate how to respond to our rural community college and how to help them address our students' needs and serve them better. On behalf of the College of Education at NC State, I want to thank both Dr. Rouse and Dr. Senegal for all that you are doing every day to champion education success for all learners in our state. I also want to profoundly thank the Belk Center and all the great work that they are doing to support education and to support community college with data, with knowledge, with information, with partnership. I believe this is really transformative, and we are very honored to have you in our college. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for organizing the Dallas Herring Lecture every year. So with that, please join me in welcoming Dr. Scott Rouse.
Thank you, and thank you, Russell, for that powerful message. On a brisk January day in 1964, Dr. Dallas Herring stood behind a podium like this in front of the new Holding Hall at the institution that's now known as Wake Tech. In a dedication ceremony that was broadcast on WRAL, he delivered a charge, the charge we heard earlier, that was echoed across the state and resonates profoundly today. We must take the people and carry them as far as they can go within the assigned system. Dr. Herring's charge was more than a directive. It was a love letter to a state that had long struggled economically. A decade earlier, North Carolina was one of the poorest states in the nation, with a per capita income that was only 2/3 the national average. And as Governor Terry Sanford followed Dr. Herring that day, he also emphasized our potential when he stated, we're seeking to make sure that North Carolina, which was 50 years late getting started in the Industrial Revolution, will be at the forefront of the space age. Now, with the innovative spirit that gave rise to the North Carolina Community College system, we took flight. And wow, did we fly. North Carolina is today recognized as an economic powerhouse, a leader in technology and job creation, a place where companies and individuals flock to and seek to thrive. Yet, amidst this success, we must not overlook the forgotten people that Dr. Herring and Governor Sanford talked about on that day. These are the individuals, the Marias that Dr. Lowry Hart noted, who embody the challenges and aspirations of our communities, but too often have been limited in their opportunities. Now, as we reflect on their potential, we recall Governor Sanford's vision for us, our collective potential, which he expressed at that time. Governor Sanford said this on that winter day at Wake Tech. He said, the lines at the welfare and unemployment office will decrease in direct proportion to the registration lines at these new educational centers. Now, 60 years later, the challenges facing the forgotten people of North Carolina can be overshadowed by our collective economic achievements. Now, consider our community where we are today, here in Raleigh, North Carolina, the state capital, second fastest growing metropolitan area in the nation, behind Russell's. Recognized last year as a leading area for biopharma manufacturing, ranked among the top 10 economically in all things you want to be ranked, except for economic mobility, where Harvard economist Raj Chetty, less than a decade ago, ranked us in the bottom 10. Now, how can this disparity exist in a place that's heralded for its economic opportunity? We must recommit ourselves to the forgotten people. Those are the people that Dr. Herring called us to address. And as Dr. Lowry Hart has urged, we need to reimagine our approach to serve them better and to confront the challenges they face in higher education and beyond. Now, 5 years ago at Wake Tech, we kind of looked at ourselves and we embraced a renewed emphasis on our mission, not a changed mission, but a renewed emphasis on our mission. Taking perhaps, as Dr. Lowry Hart suggested, that we had to go further than take and carry. And we came up with a Wake Tech version we refer to as Reach and Rally. Today at Wake Tech, we're dedicated to reaching students throughout Wake County and rallying around them to go as far as their dreams, their talents, their resilience will take them. An examination of our Wake Tech data at the time revealed that too many Marias, particularly those who needed us most in our community, were not engaging with us. Now, this prompted us to forge new partnerships and connections, collaborating with Title I high schools, establishing a physical presence in the most educationally challenged part of our community, forming what we refer to as reach partnerships with great organizations like the Boys and Girls Clubs and Dorcas Ministries and others. And while we still have much work to do, we've increased the percentage of our students coming from our economically vulnerable areas in our community from 17 to 22% since 2021. And consistent with Dr. Lowry Hart's vision, we've also centered our approach around care, as he noted. Transitioning from a fragmented support system, we now provide coordinated wraparound services, assistance through accessible care centers, where once our advising was organizationally structured like an urgent healthcare model, now our students are supported by care teams, dedicated teams of advisors, success coaches, and career coaches integrated within our academic and workforce structures. And this year we reorganized our tutoring and learning centers, TLCs, the care theme, and added peer tutoring to our focus on holistic student academic support. And these strategies and initiatives, they appear to be yielding some initial positive results. Our student retention rates are at the highest in our history. Our course withdrawal rates are significantly down. However, as Peter Drucker wisely noted, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Or in the words of Russell Lowry Hart, leadership should be culture building rather than initiative and operation centric. The true measure of our progress lies not necessarily in the structural changes we make, but the culture of courage and compassion that we cultivate. And as Dr. Lowry Hart noted in his lecture, the necessary transformation to save higher education from itself is rooted in leadership, assertive, courageous, and thoughtful leadership. Now, for those of us who are in nominal leadership roles at community colleges, the demands of courage and culture, I mean, if we're being really truthful about this, they can feel a little daunting. Russell's words were scary. Yet I found reassurance in the belief that strategy and courage and culture, leadership, if you will, is not necessarily the responsibility only of presidents. The greatest leaders do not necessarily occupy the largest offices. Now, following Jim Collins' mirror window metaphor, we often discover that collective organizational leadership and the most impactful initiatives we find by looking out of the glass, looking at the grassroots innovation taking place within our campus communities, by recognizing the dedication of faculty, staff, and student leaders. In my early days as president of Craven Community College, I encountered student success leaders like Ed Davis, a great community college leader, whose job title was maintenance worker. Now, yet while Ed tended to the duties of his formal job description, he was always listening. He was always a staunch advocate for our students and their success, and he consistently shared his ideas with me and others to better serve our students, most focused on our students in need. And one of my fondest memories as president of Craven Community College was the day we celebrated Ed's contributions by naming the new maintenance building in his honor during a ceremony highlighted by a wonderful down east pig picking. In a powerful 1984 lecture, Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist, the Holocaust survivor, the author of Man's Search for Meaning, he shared the story of a dustman in that lecture, honored with the Order of Merit by the Federal Republic of Germany for his efforts to find and repair discarded toys that he then gave to needy children. In another place and another time, Ed's title may have been that of dustman. Experiencing someone in their uniqueness and singularity, said Viktor Frankl, means loving them. And for us in community college, it means seeing the beauty in the Marias that our colleges are uniquely created to serve. Since meeting Ed Davis, I found leaders at every community college that I've served motivated by the love of students. At Wake Tech, we recognize and reflect their examples with what we refer to as the Rally Award, which we give at each bi-monthly board meeting. Rally Award winners have included innovative, caring, student-focused leaders like Police Officer Travis Smith, who's somewhere out here. Stand up, Travis. Travis, after watching a homeless student with some cans from one of our food pantries, what we call our nest, found and searched out a can opener at just the right time, and other things that he provided to that student for their support. Travis was a catalyst for what became the program called Safe Bucks at Wake Tech, where police officers encourage and reward student supports of each other and our campus community. Thank you, Travis. Emily Bergen is somewhere here. Emily, are you here? I don't see Emily. She's here, I think. But if not, Emily's a librarian at our public safety education campus who she recognized regularly occurring student needs at Wake Tech. And so what she did is she set up a resource table in her library at that campus with information about all the student services that we provide, as well as the kinds of things that students need on a regular basis, school supplies, hygiene projects. And her work became a catalyst for what we now refer to as the Perch at Wake Tech, resource pantries managed by our librarians and our tutors and our TLCs. And Dr. Jackie Swanick, who's here, Jackie's out there somewhere. Jackie, stand up, don't be embarrassed. There she is, Dr. Swanick. Jackie's a longtime biology instructor and now associate dean. She catalyzed our STEM academic and research training, what we call our START program, which combines the power of mentorship, paid internships, and student research, a program that's been championed by the National Science Foundation. Last year at graduation, a student remarked to me, this program saved or changed my life. Thank you, Jackie. Now, when Dr. Lowry Hart said in his remarks today that we must reimagine ourselves as institutions and as a sector of education in order to serve Maria and meet the growing challenges facing higher education, he echoed the words of Dr. Dallas Herring. Dr. Herring envisioned a community college system that's grounded in courage and clarity and intentionality, a system that continually reinvents itself to meet the needs of the forgotten people. He understood that true leadership and innovation flourish not only in the offices of presidents, but most importantly, among dedicated student success leaders like Ed and like Travis and like Emily and like Jackie. Those who define the culture and truly form the backbone of the Great 58, from Tri-County Community College to the College of the Albemarle. So today, with the encouragement of Dr. Lowry Hart, let's reaffirm our commitment to the Marias of our communities, the forgotten people of our communities. Let us embrace the courage to confront challenges, to foster a culture of compassion, and to continue the vital work of transforming lives through education and love. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It is such a joy to see so many of my colleagues here with me today. But I also want to acknowledge family and friends who are online, and in particular my mother, who was not able to join me physically here today. But what I want to say to her is that I appreciate all the love and care that you've poured into me so that I could stand here today and be my grandparents' wildest dream. It's a privilege to be here today to offer reflection on Chancellor Lowry Hart's insightful lecture about transforming higher education through intentional and courageous leadership. As president of Piedmont Community College, which is a rural serving institution north of Durham and on the Virginia line, I deeply appreciate this emphasis on the criticality of loving our students. It's a theme that resonates profoundly with PCC's mission, which is to transform lives, strengthen communities, and inspire individuals to excellence. And that's a mission that's not just for our students, but it's for our internal faculty and staff as well. This lecture brought to mind an oft-repeated quote that is attributed to Theodore Roosevelt, our 26th president. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So how can we in higher education, faced with increased levels of scrutiny on all of our efforts, heightened levels of political polarization, statutory constraints on our ability to address matters of diversity and equity head-on, convey to every student this particular ethic of care so that they will ultimately be able and positioned to receive all that we have to offer? The solution seems deceptively simple, but is actually more complex than a Gordian knot. With deliberate action, such as Chancellor Lowry Hart reminded us, we can consistently provide the ethic of care that every one of our 600,000 plus students that we serve across the great state of North Carolina, from Manteo to Murphy, deserves. It starts with me. It starts with you. It starts with all of us making this collective commitment to an ethic of care. So how do we hardwire an ethic of care into our respective institutions? With 78 or 74 of 100 counties considered rural, according to some statistics, for many of us, leaning into our rural assets is the key to this work. The North Carolina Rural Center defines a rural county as one that has fewer than 250 people per square miles. Well, I wasn't a math major, but I can do this math, and that means about 3.7 million North Carolinians reside in rural communities. If you're from a rural community in this room, raise your hand. So the solutions that we develop have to include a broad focus across the entire state. A recent article in Our State magazine summarized the dilemma of describing what it means or what people perceive it to mean as being rural. And the article went on to say that rural is either pictured as an idyllic, bucolic, and pastoral escape from the harried pace of our modern lives, or it's viewed as a backwards, frozen-in-time mindset that needs to be pulled, kicking and screaming, into modern times. The reality is that neither narrative is fully accurate to describe our experiences in rural North Carolina, and it's rarely based or rooted in lived experiences. But here's what I've learned in the 7 years of living within a rural community. There are pockets of brilliance everywhere. Talent is not limited to zip code, right? From Charlotte to Yanceyville, there are pockets of brilliance everywhere. And I challenge us to make sure that we're not looking for brilliance in only one type of narrow way, because if we do that, we just might miss the brilliance. The other thing I've learned about being situated in a rural community are that family connections and connections to the land are critical. Not all of our students desire to leave our rural communities and go elsewhere. And in fact, in one of my communities, 70% of our residents drive out, but you know what they do at the end of every day? They come back home because they are connected to the land. They are connected to this space that we love in rural North Carolina. The next thing I've learned about serving in rural communities are that people never forget how you made them feel, so it's important to get it right the first time. If you've not had the opportunity to employ secret shoppers in your community, I would encourage you to do so. We had a great experience from one of our secret shoppers. We had a staff member, Miss Edna, who works in our Caswell campus. The student was there on a secret mission to enroll in classes, but they never had any intention as a secret shopper of leaving their information. Well, Miss Edna refused to let the student go. She followed the student out when the student wouldn't give contact information, and finally the secret shopper had to break rank and say, all right, you win, I'm a secret shopper, right? That's the kind of love we have to show our students. The other thing I've learned about serving in rural America, and I'll say it two different ways. Some of you all will appreciate this. One is that the cavalry ain't coming. The other way to think about that is that resources are extraordinarily limited in our rural communities. So being innovative and having creative partnerships are absolutely essential to serving our students and to meeting their needs. For us, a lot of this work comes down to three things. It comes down to people, practices, and partners. And so one of the most important things we did a few years ago is that we embarked on a journey that's familiar and beloved by all of us. We updated our strategic plan. No, seriously, this was one of my favorite things that we did, all right? The good news is that now in North Carolina, thanks in part to the Belk Center and to the system office, we have a new resource with Dr. Zachary Barraclaw, who's the AVP for Strategic and Rural Innovation, and he also has another long title, but I'm not going to read it. But he works directly with all of us who need assistance potentially in redoing our strategic plans. So it's great to now have that resource available to us. As part of that process, we solicited feedback from students, community members, faculty, staff, board members, students. And even though COVID interrupted that process and forced many of the conversations online, we ultimately chose to center our work around students' equitable access to learning. As part of the strategic planning process, we also spent time clarifying those values that Dr. Lowry Hart talked about and defining them so that we could hold ourselves accountable to being better and doing more on behalf of the students that we serve. When we say we value people, here's what we mean by that. We strive to create a caring, inclusive, and safe environment that inspires all people to achieve their goals, express their creativity, share their successes, and encourage others. We carved out money from our limited resources to create a director of student engagement role that we learned was critical through that strategic planning process. This role has been a phenomenal student whisperer for us, sharing insights about additional supports that students need. Our very first person in that role was someone you might recognize, Miss Tiffany Scooby, who's now gone on to greener pastures at the system office. But while she was with us, she helped us think through and do something with the feedback that we received from students in a particular area that students had elevated and told us was a concern. So because of that feedback, she helped us understand that our traditional food pantry model was actually not being used. It wasn't being used because there wasn't a need. It wasn't being used because of the additional requirements and bureaucracy that we'd added on to accessing the goods and services that were available through our food pantry. Students were right. We needed to change. And so what we did is we transformed our traditional food pantry model where students have to sign in and tell us repeatedly how impoverished they are and what their challenges are. We threw that model out, and now our food pantry model is modeled after this idea of forgot your lunch. Everyone forgets their lunch, right? I do, right? That's why, thankfully, I have a cooler full of Diet Dr. Pepper and nabs, and so I'm able to make do. But we're trying to normalize this idea that you have a right to not be hungry. We're democratizing access to food and to period poverty supplies that are needed because we know that you cannot learn if you're hungry. We care far too much about all of our students to spend any energy or time on something that I heard from some of our faculty and staff when we proposed this change. There was a fear that some students who didn't actually need things from the food pantry would take advantage of it. We decided that we weren't going to spend any energy worrying that some students who might not need those items may actually take some. That same ethic of care has helped us identify new partners that were critical that are related to the issue of food insecurity. The 2 counties that we serve are located in a food desert. In fact, one of the counties that we serve only has 1 formal grocery store in an entire county. Think about what that means and about your access to food. Our agricultural program that we have at the college under the leadership of Mr. Lucas Bernard, I hope that you're at the watch party. Thank you, Lucas, for all of your work. They partner with the Caswell Parish, and we donate the crops that we grow as part of our ag program to families who are in need. Just last year, we were able to donate over 2,500 pounds of food to our local food bank. That is how you show that you care. We also partner with another critical organization, North Carolina Campus Engagement, under the leadership of the indomitable Miss Leslie Garvin, and I think she's here somewhere. Leslie, will you wave your hand? Are you here somewhere? Ah, there you are. All right. North Carolina Campus Engagement provided a grant to us so that we could bring in an AmeriCorps Vista coordinator around food insecurity to help map out community food resources so that our students could gain access to them, but also so that members of our community could benefit from them. Remember, our middle name is community. We also partner with a group called Second Harvest Food Bank, and they've worked with us on our Caswell campus under the direction of Miss Emily Buchanan. I think Emily is here. I don't have my glasses on, so, yeah, okay. All right, so I see Emily over there in the back. She's been able to work with the Second Harvest Food Bank to help distribute fresh foods and meat to our community while creating a space for us to engage participants to consider enrolling at PCC. Again, these are efforts that will benefit our students, but they also benefit the community in which we're situated. One of the indicators, how do we know that these things are working or having an effect? One of the markers that we look at is around enrollment. And this year, in our rural serving institution, our fall enrollments are higher than they've been in a decade. That tells me we're doing something right, that the community is trusting us because we've continuously and consistently shown that ethic of care. The other thing that we've done around this effort is that we've also worked closely on a focused strategic enrollment management plan. And that's something that I'm very proud that 2 of my rock star VPs, Dr. Barbara Buchanan and Dr. Shelley Stone Moy, have helped us craft to help us be more intentional about every message, every marketing, every communication, to help students understand the value that we bring. While people make all the difference, having the right processes in place is also a stabilizing force that can help ensure the consistency in this work. And so we've made an effort to clean up our policies and procedures and work to ensure that they don't have unintentional negative impacts on our underrepresented students. And this is one of the ways that we partnered with the Belk Center to have a policy review of all of our efforts, right, through an equity lens that helped us identify bright spots and areas for adjustment. We're grateful to the efforts of Dr. Yeager, to Elaine Townsend, and to C.G. Hester for their work and their efforts to help us identify policies that were getting in the way of the success of our students. One of the bright spots included policies with a commitment to inclusion and sustainable language choices. An example for this is our Child Development Center. The Child Development Center on our campus is one of 2 5-star daycares within a 2-county region that we serve. It's critical that this facility work and grow, and we look forward to efforts with our legislature to try and scale those efforts. But one of the things that they do at our CDC, at our Child Care Development Center, is they send home communications in the language of the parent's preference, right? A simple act, but it ensures that connection of learning for the parent with the work that the student is doing. The third and final note of important is the important role of partners in this work of caring for our students. So the reality is that many of the needs that our students bring to the table are greater than our limited resources within our respective institutions. Particularly in a rural community with limited assets, identifying and connecting with the right partners is absolutely essential. So I just want to share a few more examples that I hope will inspire you to make these same connections at your respective institutions so that we can have more uplift for all of the students we care about and serve. One example of this is a partnership through a privately funded Last Dollar Pacer Promise Scholarship Program. It offers scholarships for up to 2 years for both curriculum and for workforce development programs. And it's funded by someone you might recognize. It's the Lonnie and Carol Poole Family Foundation. They've provided over 400 scholarships in the past 3 years for students who otherwise would not have been able to attend Piedmont Community College. Another important partnership that I want you to consider making at your own institutions is with the Alamance County Community Services Agency. They're part of a network, a national network of federally funded community action organizations with the explicit purpose of creating pathways to self-sufficiency for the people that they serve. If you're not connected with your local community action organization, you are missing an opportunity to better serve your students. So what we do is we offer this organization free space on our campus so that they can easier access our students and they can receive the wraparound services that they so desperately need. When it comes to meeting the needs of our students, we must lean into our assets. And for those of us in rural communities, that means heavily relying on our people, our practices, and our partners. But mostly it means showing an ethic of care in all that we do to ensure the success of every student. That is our mandate. There are over 600,000 students across this state. There are 3.7 million students, potential students within rural communities that are counting on us to show up and to remind them that we care. I am honored that I get to do this work alongside you, and I look forward to us continuing to transform this state through higher education. Thank you.
Dr. Rawls, Dr. Senegal, thank you for contextualizing Dr. Laurie's heart to the North Carolina state, to our people, our friends, and our family. We especially appreciate you lifting up all those individuals on your campus who love with care. I would like to extend another thank you to Dr. Russell Lowry Hart for thoughtfully weaving in 9 past lectures and offering very specific strategies that we look forward to utilizing on our campuses. To our attendees, those in the room and those online, thank you for being here, for showing up, for learning, for growing together. My hope is that each of us stewards the knowledge that we've gained today, thinks critically about how to implement those new ideas in very meaningful ways. Finally, I want to thank Noemi Ramirez and Monique Cloclaw for working extra time, overtime, and the last 2 days, all the time, to make the 10th anniversary a resounding success. They were, of course, supported by an incredible Belk Center team to make it all happen. So to the entire team, thank you. It's my honor to work with such immensely talented individuals. And as we conclude today's event, I'd like to leave, of course, with another final quote from, thank you all, in words that's but is built over time with continuous effort. Herring wrote, "We all understand that we have only made a long way to go before we can claim success. But we must be willing to get on with the task. We must be willing to move ahead. We must be willing to look at our failures as well as our successes We must look at them in light of the original objective, the magnificent goal of total education. We should let nothing deter us from within or without. Like Herring, we must let nothing deter us from our mission of opening the door to meaningful educational opportunities for each and every learner. Thank you all for being here.